next up, we have another duo of people presenting. This time, it's two persons from Italy. We have Angelo Porta and Dmitri Bellini. You have probably seen them in meetups, summits, involved in our community, quite prominent members. And they will be telling us how you can migrate to Zabbix in a mid-sized bank environment. Quite useful. A lot of you are probably thinking, how can I migrate, my specific environment to Zabbix, either from a different tool or just from scratch? And they will tell you how to do it in their specific use case. Let's welcome Angelo Porta and Dmitri Bellini.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dmitri Bellini, CEO of Quadrata, premium partner for Zabbix in Italy. And today, with my colleague Angelo Porta, we would like to present a great example of a migration from legacy, and not only a legacy monitoring solution, with Zabbix in a very complex scenario of a bank. So, I give the words to my colleague Angelo Porta.
Okay, I'm ready to start. And I will start presenting you the case for this bank. What we will show you in this presentation is the bank, the previous monitoring landscape. So the landscape we found in the bank starting this project, the bank requirements, why Zabbix, so why the bank choose the Zabbix instead of among other players in this market, and other information about the configuration, about the template, about what we did in this bank. So about the bank we are speaking is one of the biggest 10 banks in Italy for branch network, for loans to customers, and so on, and among the first 25 European bank for capitalization market. Okay, what we found at the end of last year, end of 2019, in the bank when we were there for the first time. Okay, we passed the days analyzing the monitoring landscape, and we found at least 20 different monitoring tools. libreNMS for networking, CheckMK for servers, but not the Windows servers. So a very fragmented monitoring landscape. Zabbix was present for some area, for some limited area. There was also, of course, Oracle Enterprise Monitor. There was Microsoft SCCM, and many little custom implementation for taking data directly from devices, for presenting limited dashboard, and so on. Another thing that we discovered was that for each alert, there were hundreds of mails sent to different people, and this leads to a let me say, not possible environment to administer, because many people that received the mail only deleted it, and so was all. The last things was that there was no a central monitoring distributed effort, because the monitoring effort were distributed in all the banks. So not the ideal landscape. Then we analyzed the bank requirement. The bank requirement were, of course, having a single pane of glass for data center. In this bank, we have 2 data centers and more than 1,500 branches. An increased monitoring capability, a secured environment, and mainly more automation, because one of the requirement was to have an environment, a monitoring environment audited, in which each modification could be addressed to some people. Not direct monitoring of all this complex environment, but handled by many proxies. An alerting schema modified with escalation, a more simple escalation process, and last but not least, having the Zabbix monitoring framework in parallel with the main existent monitoring tools for some weeks, some months. Why the bank chose the Zabbix among other competitors for many reasons. Many reasons because the banks recognize the better cross-feature on network server software environment, because the bank recognized a great opportunity to extend the integration with other internal bank software. And for many, because we presented at the bank the many enhancements in every Zabbix release, and a best integration with automation software the bank already had in place, Ansible, and last but not least, even in this case, some experience and skill among bank people. So, first thing, we had to help the customer to design an infrastructure able to address and able to monitor many thousand devices in the 2 data center in the branch. So we forecasted at the beginning many items, many new value per second, and so we had to develop an architecture able to handle this. So the architecture is based basically on 2 database servers clusterized using Patroni and etcd, and many many Zabbix proxy, one of these for each environment, so production, pre-production, test, and so on. Moreover, in the 2 data center, of course, moreover, we proposed a manager of manager, so another Zabbix server that is able to monitor the 2 Zabbix server, the 2 Zabbix engine, one for the data center, another for the branches, and having some data about this. And another characteristics is to have a mail server, and most important, the 2 databases are replicated in such a way that each database, so the database that handles the data center, is replicated on the other server that handles the branches, and vice versa. So we have always 2 copies of the database, keeping using Patroni, that is the software that is able to handle this. Keep in mind that the 2 data centers are not near each other, but the distance is around more than 50 kilometers apart. The other architecture that is integrated in the previous slide, is the architecture for the branches. So for the branches, we have another Zabbix engine. We already saw the mechanism of replication between Patroni for the 2 database server, and many proxy. At the beginning of the project, we forecasted 1 proxy for each branch, so 1,500 proxy, more or less. As for the infrastructure, explained the infrastructure in detail, so we had for the database and for Zabbix engine, we have bare metal servers, so no virtual machine in this case. We have each of these 4 servers, so 2 servers for the database and 2 servers for the Zabbix engine, are very powerful servers with many core, a couple of core, many core, and many processor, and a lot of RAM, 256 gigabyte of RAM, of course, and internal disk, very high speed. So this is very important for the working of this configuration. A virtual machine for the manager of manager, and another server for handling the database backup. That is very important in this case because you don't want to lose any data. As for the software, we preferred Red Hat Enterprise Edition 7 because for the stability and so on. As for the database, we have a Postgres SQL 12 with a timescale DB extension that is very useful in this case for handling the housekeeping, the periodic housekeeping of the database. As for the clustering of this database, we have a Patroni cluster and that handle the Postgres and the timescale DB and present the Postgres timescale DB to the backup server, of course. Zabbix server is 5.0 and the proxy is developed in a very numeric way. So, as for the template, we started, of course, for the basic template that are distributed with Zabbix 5, but we deleted a lot of metrics because having in mind every time that we need to lower the number of new value per second, we have to lower the periodicity in such a way that we can handle a so big amount of server, a so big amount of device with our servers. So we added the throttling and keep alive, and we tuned this for massive monitoring. We relaxed some trigger and the recovery, reinforced the recovery in such a way that we had no false positive, no false negative among them. We developed some custom template, for instance, for handling the Linux multipath monitoring. We need to develop a custom template for NFS CIFS monitoring, but for this we need a functionality Zabbix because otherwise we cannot handle the stale condition for the NFS file system, and we needed to develop a custom webhook for ingestion in a third-party software for ticketing. So a very important part of the project was the Zabbix configuration and provisioning, handled totally using Ansible task and playbook. Because for using Ansible task and playbook, we are able to distribute agent on all the servers. We are able to distribute to automate the installation of the agent, to associate the template to the host according to their role in the environment, and to associate also the host group using the CMDB, using information derived from CMDB. So let me say a landscape that is connected, strictly connected with the CMDB. Some custom script, of course, for instance, in order to have a user alignment with Active Directory. As for the Active Directory, the customer asked also for the single sign-on, and we developed the single sign-on functionality using the Active Directory Federation service, using the Zabbix SML 2.0 in order to interface the Microsoft Active Directory functionality. During the implementation, we found and solved many issues. Not big issues, but we had, of course, in each project of this size, there is something that is not evolved according to the initial initial schema. For instance, as I told before, we forecasted one proxy for each branch, but 1,500 proxy is a little expensive, even for a bank. Not only for the provisioning, but also for the maintenance and support. So we decided jointly with the bank to have less proxy, and we were able to address all the device in the branches using only 4 proxies. So this was a very interesting study. Then we had another problem because when we implemented all the metrics, all the template we associated with a lot of devices, we are speaking about more than 10,000 devices. We had the database for the data center growing over 3.5 terabyte. In order to decrease the size of the database, we worked on the throttling and on the keep alive. Was sufficient in this case, in this particular case, to have to increase the keep alive from 15 minutes to 1 hour to 60 minutes, and even lowering the sample interval to only to 5 minutes. So in this case, we are able to less the database, and the database today is less than 3 terabyte for the data center. The database for the branches is small compared to this. Another problem that we faced was the Solaris 10. Solaris 10, there is no official Zabbix agent, so we needed to recompile and to test this agent extensively. Another problem issue was the not supported value preprocessing for NFS stale, as I told before, and we needed also to ask for increase the max length of user macro to 2000 characters on server side, and to ask for JavaScript preprocessing user macro support. Some figure about the project. So today, where we are. The project started in April, as I told before. We studied alone, and the project took some months in order to implement the architecture and to test the architecture. So we started in April, and the massive deploy was in July, in August. At the moment, we have more than 5,000 monitored servers in the two data centers, more or less 2,500 in each data center. In the branches, we have more or less from around 9,000, more than 9,000 at the moment, monitored device. Monitored device means not only servers, but also ATM, means also mainly switches, interconnection switches, a router between the data center and the branches. The actual database is less than 3.5 terabyte for the two data center, and half terabyte for branches. Currently, we monitor in the monitoring of the two data center, we have more than 3,800 new value per second, and at the moment we are in the parallel. So the working in parallel between Zabbix and the previous monitoring framework like libreNMS and CheckMK, and the bank plan to decommission both end of 2020. What is the future? What is the future of this project? Okay, we needed to complete the data center monitoring for other devices. As I told before, in the monitoring of data center, we are only under monitoring. There are only servers, basically only servers, and we needed to expand mainly to networking equipment. Complete branches monitoring for switches and Wi-Fi access point, because this was not implemented in widely. We need to implement custom periodic reporting. The customer asked us to have a periodic report to present to the upper management level. We need to integrate with C-level dashboard, because the customer has already implemented the C-level dashboard, and we are integrating with this. And last but not least, tune alerting and escalation, because we need to send the correct trigger, the correct message to the correct people. Otherwise, the message will be only discarded. And that's all. So,
thank you very much for listening us. And if you have other question, or maybe if you have a question, please ask now. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentations. We do have a couple of questions indeed. So one quite important one, and a really interesting one for me as a support engineer. So have you considered upgrading to 5.0 and using timescale DB compression?
Everybody, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes. We can hear you.
Perfect, thank you. No, at the moment, no, but we have the plan to upgrade to Zabbix 5.0 and try the compression. We have the plan to do that, but we are not so confident, so we wait some minor release and some more stress test of the infrastructure. So maybe in the next week, we try to upgrade and activate the compression.
So timescale DB is, which feature is the most of interest to you in timescale DB? Is it the partitioning? Is it the compression? Is it both?
But the main feature is related to Postgres in general speaking, because we notice a very nice database solution with a very great backup solution, and also there is a very good implementation of a cluster management that is called Patroni, and we use a lot Patroni. And finally, timescale DB is also very important for that kind of data that we are using. No, it's time series, so it's very important to manage this kind of data in a very efficient way. And timescale DB can provide this kind of efficiency. So I would suggest to all of Zabbix guys try to test Postgres and timescale DB.
Thank you. A couple of more questions about this environment that you talked about. So at the end of the day, what is the expected new values per second for this environment?
Near 4,000 for the main data center, and maybe 500 or some much more for the branches.
So very, very decent instance, not too small, actually quite large, yes.
Not so big, but
it's not small also. I'd say it's a decent medium to large sized instance. So it's something that you should still kind of take care of and look after and optimize and so on. So it's definitely not a small one. No. Let's see what else. What methods did you use to migrate from your multiple different solutions to Zabbix?
The easy one, fresh install.
Fresh install.
And start from scratch everything. And most of the time we use both the monitoring solution in the same time to check if Zabbix is able to collect the same of the previous monitoring solution. It is the only one at the moment, because I have too many kind of monitoring solutions, so it's not easy to create a script or something like that.
Yeah, that's why we were asking. Yeah, because like it's a very heterogeneous environment, and how would you, kind of unify all of that? Okay, yeah, so a fresh install. Okay, that was the last of our questions. Thank you a lot. As always, keep an eye out on the Q&A section. Maybe more questions will come up throughout the summit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you a lot.